Okay, welcome all of you for the lab session today. The plan is, as I mentioned in the mail, only one small built-in function, which is not too different from byte array what we saw yesterday. I will talk about that. Maybe it will be helpful to you when you work on NumPy and other machine learning related libraries, where you could possibly may use this um, built-in function. So I thought I will introduce that, and then we will have a problem, only one problem, not very complex, very simple one, but little bit of error checking and control thing is there. I want you to pay attention to that kind of a safe program, writing safe program, which all of you are familiar anyway. I thought we will use whatever we learned in this classes yesterday and try to write some program. Okay, so that's what I plan to do today, and I want you to submit the program also. Okay, I will create an entry there in the classroom so that you can we can include it for the assessment for the lab component. As you guys mentioned yesterday, we will have more assignments every lab. We will, whatever you do, you submit it so that that becomes a evaluation component for you in the lab, so that it is easier for all of us to evaluate also. Okay, and you also keep learning as you go proceed further in the class. Okay, so let us start with the session which I wanted to cover yesterday and could not do that. The memory view. Okay, this is not a capital, it's small letter. Library function. Okay, it's a very simple one, and I will not spend too much time on this. We will quickly go into the lab portion. This is the fourth, I think, continuation of session 11b. What we pass is an object to the memory view. It's a built-in library function. It returns the memory views of the object. Actually, it accepts the byte array only. I try to pass some other object. It doesn't accept it. It accepts the byte array objects. I need to maybe dig deeper into it. Okay. Here, what does it do? Memory view is a safe way to expose the buffer protocol. Okay, just I will not go deeper into buffer protocol. It's a framework in which Python objects can expose raw byte arrays to other objects. See, as I mentioned yesterday, byte array is a representation of how an object is in the memory, and it is a abstract and a short form of, it takes a contiguous memory locations. Okay, whereas if you have an integer object or maybe a array of objects, they need not be in a contiguous space. Okay, because you know that the integer number itself can grow, and then any objects, even array of objects, or whatever objects you have, the memory what it reserves for that particular object need not be in a contiguous space. It could be dynamically increasing based on what you append it, maybe including a list. Suppose if you have a list and you keep appending to it, it cannot have all these entries in a contiguous space. It may be growing it internally from taking the memory chunks and then linking it up somehow. So that's why any objects that you see in Python may not be efficient in terms of manipulating it, especially if you want to do a large array of data and you want to manipulate it. Then the byte array is a good example or a good solution, because it gives you a contiguous space and then you can operate on it. Okay, but as we saw yesterday, it is not equivalent to a C array. It doesn't take equal amount of space, but it's relatively much efficient in terms of memory size, as well as more in terms of performance compared to any other objects. Okay, byte arrays, we saw that. Now, memory view is to give you a view of what is there in the object memory, that you can use it for manipulating it directly, as well as for any other purposes in the Python world, not in no, you are not going to pass the byte array to a C function like C function, but here the memory view is for seeing those memories content in the Python code itself. Whereas byte array could be passed across to C APIs, and then we can manipulate it on C. There are possibilities of interfacing those other low-level function calls with those byte arrays. Whereas here, memory view gives you a view of looking at the memory content in the Python world itself, within the Python program itself. Okay, that's a major difference between a memory view, I would say. And the buffer protocol helps you in doing that. Okay, it's a kind of an interface to the memory of the objects to expose it to you the contents of the memory. So Python, and it behaves just like a bytes in many a context. Okay, it's more or less like a byte array. Buffer protocol provides a way to access the internal data of an object. Okay, we can look at those objects internally. Internal data is memory array or a buffer. Okay, whatever is stored in a object. It allows one object to expose its internal data and others to access those buffers without intermediate copying. So if you are if you want to actually someone or some other object to manipulate a particular content of an object, you can pass this memory view, and then those objects can easily change those contents, okay, without making multiple copies, or more efficient way of handling updates to the data what is being held in an object. So useful to implement machine learning algorithms using NumPy to efficiently store and manipulate large arrays of data. And buffer protocol is provided mainly to enable accessibility to the C API, whereas memory view is provided to give you an access to the memory content in the Python world. Okay, the buffer protocol is an interface to manipulate the objects. So memory view is provided to expose the same protocol to allow normal Python programs to view the same memory and manipulate them if needed. So to summarize it, we are interested in looking at the memory content because we want to manipulate it directly, which all C programming people with a C programming background wants to do. At the same time, it also provides you mechanism to safeguard any wrong manipulation. If you are going out of the index list or array size, it will catch it. Okay, that's why it is not as efficient in terms of memory usage compared to C array, but it is much better than a normal object. Okay, and memory view is a way of interfacing with those memory content of objects, and buffer protocol is the way this memory view interacts with the final buffer memory, object memory. Okay, so we don't need to go deeper into buffer protocol, but what we are going to see is a small demo of this memory view objects, how to use them, and then we will go into the lab section. Okay, this is only one a small introduction I thought I will give you today. I am not going to write any code. We will see this code whatever we have. Okay, now as I mentioned, it's a built-in function, memory view, so we don't need to import anything. And suppose if we have a byte array, which we saw yesterday, filled it with 3 characters XYZ, and the encoding is ASCII, then we can pass that byte array to memory view to get the view of the same memory. Okay, you could do that with byte array also. I'm not saying that you cannot do that. Indexing we saw yesterday. This is another way of interfacing with the byte array. Now, if you print it, you will see that XYZ is hexadecimal 88, and then the subsequent numbers will be coming, okay, because it's all increasing ASCII values. So you can access them as an individual element, as a array, memory array, like a byte array. Now, you can also convert it into bytes. You can also do a slicing. Actually, this slicing operation on the memory view is much more efficient in terms of implementation, they say, compared to normal slicing that we do on list or whatever, because it is directly manipulating those memories, and it uses the buffer protocol to handle them. So the slicing happens without any intermediate copy. Okay, beyond that, we have to look at the implementation, how it is done. But if you are slicing and list, that will have more inefficient way of handling things, because the list can grow to any size, whereas here we have a limitation on the byte arrays, and byte a memory view of the byte array which is created. So we will be able to handle it more efficiently here. Even the slicing operation would have been done much efficiently here. So I'm showing you how to slice it. Okay, how to get those one single byte value from this, because 0 to 1, you know, that is the first location which is going to come out. And then I am going to change the value of this memory view content. Okay, whatever is there at 0, which is currently capital X, I'm going to change it to small x and see whether it is getting reflected. Okay, so let us just see these three output first before we see other one. So we see that 88, 89, these are all gives you in hexadecimal format. Okay, I think 0x88. Okay, and then we see that I am just printing. Okay, let me show you this value, which is capital X value. I am filling it with a small x here and then printing it. Okay, when I print here, you see that we get this value. Okay, 120 is the actual hexadecimal value of decimal value of x, small x. Okay, you can look at the ASCII value of small x. Then converting, now we can even convert this byte array into a string. Okay, MB is the complete XY that with the small x now, which can be converted into x in a string, but it's a by string. You can see that it is printing it as a string here. Okay, now what more we can do, we can view those string also. Okay, which I am doing it, where is that? Yeah, here I'm doing the view of my string also in terms of each byte, which I am printing it here. So it's just to summarize, this is getting a string. Okay, what we have initially created byte array, and then we modified that values, and then we also converted that MB to a string. Then we are seeing those content of the string in terms of bytes, and we see these values. Okay, so it's a very high level overview of what is memory view is all about. I don't have anything more to say here. Okay, that's why I thought I will add. I'll show you only this code. Any questions from anyone? Okay, now let us look into the problem that I want to share today. Okay, so let me just give you an overview before I start off. So what did we learn yesterday? We saw a sum function which takes two parameters. One is a iterable object, and then second one is a start. Okay, which is initialized to 0, but you can give any other number. Then this function, sum function, adds all the iterable numbers that you are given. It adds everything, and then if you are given a start value, it adds start also and gives you the sum value. Okay, the total sum is given back. So I want to use this sum function in our demo today. Now we also saw that the sum function can take any number of parameters as a iterable. So I want to build some fn1 if this is a function, fn2 is another function, fn3 and fn. Now what are these functions? This accepts one parameter, this accepts two parameters, this accepts three parameter, this accepts n parameters. Okay, so the number of parameters is what is given here. These are the three functions we have. Oh, sorry, four functions. Function 1 takes just one parameter, function 2 two parameters, and this takes 3, and this takes n parameter. Now what are we trying to do here? We want to actually use the sum inside this. Okay, sum function inside all of them. Okay, I have written this function. I'll show you what I have written. And then here also it is using sum. So this function 1 uses the sum function inside, passing the parameter that it has come in, and then it also passes another function which is another value which is equivalent to start. like that sum is having, and it also return passes one more parameter. Then this sum computes the summation of all the numbers and returns the result, whatever is the result. Now these functions are already written. Okay, this n number of parameters or maybe one parameter we are passing. Now why did I write this function? Okay, for that 4 functions, why did I write? Actually, what I want to do, I have created one init array. Okay, init function objects array, which is filled with fn1, fn2, fn3, and fn4, sorry. These functions I have already defined. You don't want to write it. I have already defined it. I have also filled one list with these function objects. Now, we know the limitation that this only accepts one parameter, this accepts 2 parameters, this 3 and 4, n number of parameters. Now, this n number of parameter, how am I passing? I am passing as a tuple. Okay, tuple. So 1 to n. So I pass this as a tuple to this function. And you know that internally it is going to call sum function, and it is going to compute the sum of those values and return it. Now, what I want to do, or what I want you to do, is to call this function objects from a randomly filled list. Okay, randomly filled list. Now let us look at that. I want to fill a random list. Okay, function objects list, which is filled with different function objects, which are picked up from this. Okay, you have to use a function called random dot choice with a list. You have to pass a list here. It will return one of the elements of the list. Okay, you can make a choice, a random choice. So you will be using a function, a random dot choice. We will be importing random also, and then it is going to pick a random in random any one of these functions. Okay, the function objects, and then you use this function to fill this list, function object list. That means you may have fn2, fn3 maybe, then fn, maybe fn1. It can be anything. Now how many to be filled? That is a configurable number, is a constant, which you will be filling it. You will be, before you start the file, you will be saying that, okay, I want to fill maybe 10 functions. That means then it will fill randomly these function objects into this list. You need to write the function which does a random fill of these function objects by picking it up from the list what I give you. Now you need to call them, right? So you have now filled it with the random order, the functions. You don't know which order they have been filled into. Now you are going to write another function to call these objects, function objects. Now before that you need to have some parameters, right? Because each of those functions need to be given a parameter, because they are all positional parameter, not optional one. So you need to fill them with fn1, means you have to fill with one parameter. fn2 needs to be filled with 2 parameters. Now where do you pick these parameters from? So I want to pick the parameters also in a random fashion. So let us have maybe function params list. Okay, another list I want you to fill from random, again random function, but I want you to fill only between 1 to 9, that is inclusive, both inclusive, a number between 1 to 9 inclusive, both 1 and 9. So you will be filling it with, not in the order, okay, any random number. Now how many need to be filled? That is also a configurable parameter. So there are 2 configurable parameters. How many are going to be in the parameter list, and how many function objects are going to be there in the function object list. So you are going to have 2 parameters which you have to fill it up with any number. Okay, it could be 0 also, it could be 1 or 10 or maybe 100, we don't know. So what you will do, you have to write a function to randomly fill this list based on the configuration. which you can change it on every iterate, every invocation. Similarly, you fill this parameter list also randomly. That number also could be anything. So they are not related. Okay, these two numbers are independent numbers. Now the problem comes when you have a list of functions objects, list of function objects. Okay, I'll call it as function objects. Then list of parameters. You have list of parameters. I want you to call this function one by one using the parameters which are there in this. Now, if you encounter a function 1 here, you will use only one parameter from this list. Then you will advance further. If you find fn3, you will use 3 parameters. That means 3 numbers you will be picking it up from this list, and then you advance it. So you will not reuse the number which you already picked up. You will keep picking it up further. Now, what about f1n? I never mentioned how many you are going to fill it up with. I want to have a randomness here also. Okay, f1n, you decide using a random function a number between 1 to 6. Okay, you can choose anything, but to be on the 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, whatever. Okay, a random number you pick it up, and that many number of function parameters you will be passing it to this function. Now, how will you know how many to pass? Because you are going to pass it in a list only, and that random number gives you how many parameters are going to be passed here for this function, which you will be making as a tuple. I will give you an example, then you will understand more clearly. Then you are going to pass how many parameters you are passing, that number also, number of params, whatever this random gives you. Suppose if it has given you 5, you will call this fn with maybe a tuple with 5 numbers, okay, which you would have picked up from here, and then you will say 5. Okay, now next time if you find a fn here, it will again compute the n number, how many it has to fill. I think that I have already written it, so you don't need to write. So you will have maybe 3, means you will have 3 parameters you will be picking it up from here, and pass a 3 also. So you need to do this, okay, when you are calling it inside the function, from the list you are calling it now. So you need to take care of this also, that if you encounter a function n object, then you have to randomly find out how many parameters you need to call it with, and that many number of parameters you have to call. Now the fun part is, not a fun part, maybe a little bit of difficult part is, your parameter list is limited, okay, and even this function object is also limited, but parameter list is also limited. Now if it says 3 and you don't have sufficient number of parameters, what do you do? It will get into a array index problem. So you need to catch it before that array index happens, and you should say that I have exhausted all my parameters in the list, so sorry, I can't call. Okay, so you need to exit. Now once you find that you cannot call a function somewhere in the middle, anyway you cannot call any other function down also, so you will exit it. Okay, that's all I can do based on the list of parameters I have. If in case if I have sufficient number of parameters, I will call it with that number of parameters and then go further. Either if you exhaust it, this function objects, and then you could call because sufficient number of parameters are there, you will come successfully out. Or if the parameters are limited, you will come out immediately saying that sorry, I can't call any more parameters. Is the problem explanation clear? Okay, maybe I will summarize everything for once again, and then I will show the code also, and I will run it also, and then I will ask the question whether the problem definition is clear. Okay, so I have defined function 1, function 2, function 3, and function n. Now how many number of each of them? Function n, 1 is a function which I already defined all of them. It takes only 1 parameter, it takes 2 parameters, this takes 3 parameters, and this takes n number of parameters. This n you decide based on some random number, maybe between 1 to 6 or 5. I don't know what I have implemented. I will show you. It can be anything, but you can have a small number here. So based on this number, you will form a tuple with that many number of parameters, followed by actual number of parameters which are there. You will pass that also. Okay. So this is how you are going to call these functions. Now you are going to have a list of these function objects which are randomly filled. Okay, you need to write the function to do that. And then this is a function object list. Another is parameter list, which also is going to be filled by you a number between 1 to 9. Okay, randomly generated 1 to 9 is going to be filled here. Okay, these functions are going to compute the sum of this number and return the result. Okay, that's what I told you earlier. Now the problem is you are going to randomly, you are going to look at this list one by one, and based on what function you come across, you are going to use that many number of parameters from this list. While invoking it, make sure that that many number of parameters are there in the list before calling it. If you find that the sufficient number of parameters are not there, you should raise a error and come out. Okay, gracefully come out. You should not get into some exception in a function. So the number of entries here are configurable, which you can decide, and you need to test it with even a value of 0 or 1 more than the other, and your function should work. Okay, that's the problem definition. Let me ask, is it partially clear? I don't want to ask that fully clear. Partially clear the problem, or maybe too early to ask. Okay, only one problem. Okay, no answers. So let me. Oh, great. Thank you, Swati. But don't worry. Even if, so what random select same function 2 times? No problem. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I did not say that. Yeah, it can call any number of. Okay, it's purely random, right? You know, your list is having fn1, fn2, fn3, and fn. So if your list is more than 4 naturally, and even if it is less than 2, it can repeat, same thing can be picked up, and you are going to have maybe 10, suppose 10 functions in the objects. So there will be some repetition. Okay, fn2, then fn2 may come again. It can be, you know, anything. Okay, because you are having only 4 and you need to have a list with a more number of function objects, so it is naturally going to be repeating, no issues. That is not a problem even if it comes multiple times. But while calling, you need to verify whether what function has come in, and then you need to call it with a relevant number of parameters. Okay, that's the key of, you know, how will you do that kind of a thing. Okay. Okay, any other questions before I go and explain? Because that actually makes life easier because you are thinking ahead. Okay. How to know the number of params needed? Yeah, that's isn't it obvious? Because when you pick up a function object, you need to check whether it is equal to fn1, okay, or is it equal to fn2. If it is true, that you know that it needs 2 parameters. So you need to check for all this, one of this. Okay, you are sure that you are going to get one of them. Okay, it's not, you are not going to get something. Maybe you can have another else condition. If none of these conditions satisfy, you can say that illegal function objects came in. Okay, that I have not done in my code, but you can do it. Okay, I hope this is clear, right? Because I am giving you the function definition, and this list is going to have those one of the function objects only. Yeah, it is hard coded. Okay, any other questions that you can think of? Okay, now let me show the code, not my full implementation, but at least template. Okay, I'm going to share this template for sure. So let me show. It's not using that random, I think. Okay, now, sorry, here. Okay, let me go one by one. Okay, let me take a little more time. Look at this. These are the configurable parameters I said. Function objects in the list could be 5. Number of parameters in the parameter list could be anything. So I have taken it as a 5 and 10. Now, in this example, let me explain what would have been, the list what you have generated will have. The list what you have generated, a function objects list, okay, will have 5 entries. It will have randomly chosen functions. Okay, these 5 objects will be there. Now, because you have configured this as a 5. Now, list of params list will have 10 entries. Now, I mentioned that it is 1 to 9. So, maybe 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 9, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I hope number is correct. So 10 you have chosen. So 10 numbers are the parameters to be used by the functions. Now imagine you have bad choice, bad luck. You got F and N. Now F and N you need to choose. Okay, 1 second. I don't know. Okay, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 I didn't know. Okay, random number. Okay, assume that 1 to 6, 6 I have given. That means maximum 5 parameters can be there. It doesn't matter even if you choose something else different than what I have given. Imagine that randomly you are choosing some number from 1 to 6 and you get a 5. Okay, imagine you got a 5. When you are invoking it, you are on the fly, you are finding out how many number of parameters this function needs to be passed with. Okay, so this invocation may say 5, and then if you have one more f and n, it will have maybe some different number. So you may call this with 5 parameters and you will call this with 2 parameters based on this randomness what you are calling. Okay, so you are getting the function object only in case of a function n, you will be deciding how many parameters I should call this function with. So imagine you have been given a choice that 5, random number has come with a 5. Then what will you do? You will pick the 5 numbers because you are the first object you are coming across. You will pick these 5 numbers, form a tuple. That's what you are supposed to do. Then because you are passing 5 numbers, you say 5 and call function n. Job done. This function is called successfully. Okay, now I will show you the implementation of this function. It is going to check whether what you are passing is matching with what you are giving here. Okay, so if your algorithm somewhere some mistake is there, this is going to throw saying that I did not get the matching number of parameters. Okay, that's why I said that you need to be careful when you're calling because it is going to check inside. Now what about function 1? Very simple. You have gone up to this in the previous invocation. Now you have a 3 here. So function 1, you will call function 1 with 3 now. Okay, this one, it is consumed now. Now function 3, it has come. Now you know that it is function 3. You need 3 parameters, or you are lucky you have 3 parameters. So 9, 7, 9. It is also saved. Now you are picking up fn2. If it was fn1, you would have been happy, but it is fn2. So there are no sufficient number of parameters now in your list. So before calling fn2, you should say that parameters exhausted. I cannot call function 2 because it means 2 parameters. I have only 1 now, so I am coming out. This is what you need to do. Okay, this function is what I want you to implement. Apart from this random filling of these 2 arrays, you need to also implement a function which picks up these function objects one by one and then calls the relevant parameters. And you should go like this. You should not call the same parameter again. And if you are not having sufficient parameter, you should give an error. Is the explanation clear? Anybody? I will show you a running code. Maybe that will become easier to follow. Okay, let us go forward. Now, this is the function which accepts one parameter. What I do internally, it doesn't matter. I am calling sum. Okay, you know that sum function. You know how to call with one parameter a tuple because I am passing a tuple because it is expecting a iterable object, right? So I am constructing a tuple and then passing it. I am also passing a 1 like a start function, start value. Okay. that is okay. I'm going to give you this code, and it is going to compute the result and then going to give the result out. Now what I do in function 2, I'm going to be called with two parameters. Okay, I expect two parameters to come in, and I am calling the sum with the two parameter as a tuple, and then another two I am passing. Okay, that's all. Now what about 3? It is going to come in with the three parameters. I'll call a tuple with the three parameters. I am going to pass another number 3, which is a start number, which is having a default value, but I am giving it every time new one, and it is going to compute the result. I am going to print it. So, and every time inside I'm going to print it, so that you know what you are getting is proper or not, whether it is coming in the same order or not. Okay, I will show you a running code, then you will know exactly what I am expecting. Now is that our funny program, which is very restricted in terms of what it can accept. Though it is n number, it wants the n to be same. I am given some default value here, doesn't matter, but I am going to check inside what I am getting. Okay, how many number of parameters I am getting in the tuple. Okay, I am going to check whether what I get n is same as that or not. If it is not same, I am going to say error n. See, if you know, it is going to say error is coming from the function n, length is so and so. Okay, I'm going to come out. Okay, what you have passed as a second parameter and the tuple, they are not matching. That means while invoking fnn, you made some mistake, and this is going to catch it. Other things anyway will be caught by the interpreter itself, because runtime interpreter or whatever, if you call with different number of parameters, runtime interpreter is going to give you an error. But this, I am going to check it inside this function whether you are calling it properly or not. If you are called properly, then I will compute the sum, pass the tuple to it, and then again I am going to print it. I am going to return it. Okay, that's all. This is the function which is doing it. Now what I have done, template, this is a template file, right? So I have not filled the code. I have given you fill get random parameters, generate random parameters. So I am going to give this list which is globally defined. Okay, you need to fill this with a number of parameters. Now how many parameters you will fill it with? You need to fill it with 10 now, because that's what is given here. So you need to this function should generate random number of numbers from 1 to 9 and fill that 10 numbers of that into the list. Okay, and pass the same list out. That's the job of this function. What about this function? It is going to generate a random number of function objects. Now it is function objects are there, you cannot generate it, but you need to pick it up randomly. Okay, that list I have not shown you. No, okay, let me show you. This is the list. Okay, this is the list, init function object list, which is I have defined as a global here. I want you to use the globals, which I told you global, to access that list from internally. Okay, from this function. Okay, this is a practice of using the global. How would you access the global variable? I think without that also you can access, but you cannot. I want you to use the global here to access this list, and then use the random choice function, random.choice, and if you pass this list, it will give you one of the element as a chosen object coming from this list, so that you will use it to fill this list. Okay, so I hope you understand. You are going to pick randomly one of the function objects in the list and fill it up, and you will fill as many as this number. Okay, how many number of function objects. Once these two functions are called and they have filled these things list, then you are ready now to call your another function which you are going to implement it, which accepts the function objects list and the parameter list, and it is going to do the logic that I mentioned, that it will go through this function list and call that many number of parameters, and if it is not sufficient, it will come out. Okay, that is what you are going to implement it here. Okay, now how are you going to call function 1? It's directly calling function 1 like this, function 2 like this, function 3 will be like this, function n will be called like this. Okay, if this is run, all my functions are going to run properly. They are going to send the result. Okay, 1 plus 1, internally 1 is getting added, you remember, 2 is the result. Here 1 plus 2 is passed, 3 plus 2, another 2 is getting added, so 5. Here this number 6 plus 3, 9. Here it is going to add all this number plus 5, so 20. So that is what the output of these functions are. Similarly, when I fill this list with this many number of function objects and this many number of parameters, I should get the list, a printout like this. This function should be invoked and it should run without any problem, provided this number of parameters are sufficient enough. If they are not sufficient, you should give a error saying that I have exhausted my parameter list. Sorry, please, no, I cannot call anymore. Okay, that is what I want you to do. Now, let me run actual program. Okay, actual program, and then show you the randomness in the business. Okay, now this is a program which I have implemented it. Now this thing is same. Okay, template whatever I given you. Now these are the numbers 5 and 10. That means what? 5 functions have been passed. Now what are the functions? Now it has been invoked now, so all of them, luckily they have sufficient number of parameters. Now you see that randomly I am lucky, f and n did not come at all. 1, 3, 3, 1 and 2. Now let us see, I am printing the random parameters also that I have generated, which are between 1 and 9. Now whether you see whether it is done properly or not. It is called with parameter 9. Yes, first parameter with one parameter, so it is called properly. Fn3 is called, has to be called with 3 parameters, which are these 3, 8, 9, 4. Again Fn3 has to be called with 3 parameters, so these 3, okay, sorry, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 5, and summation also will be right because the function is not modified. Function 1 after 2 to 5, 8. Okay, then I'm lucky, 9, 5, 9, 5. Okay, no errors. Okay, you may not be lucky always. I'm going to run again. Okay, see here. Now I ran it again. Okay, now the same number 5 and 10. Okay, the parameters and this. Now what happened? Four functions have been called successfully. 2, 1 and 2, 2. Now how many parameters have I exhausted? 2 here, 1, 3, 3 plus 2, 5, 5 plus 2, 7. Now I got f and n with the n as 4. That means I already exhausted 7 parameters. I have only 10 in the list, not totally 7 have been used. I need 4 for this function, but I have only 3. So I'm sorry. I mean, my index is at 7. I have used 7, but I need 4 parameters, but this list is having only 3. So parameter list exhausted, it comes out. Okay. It has happened at the last function, but it could happen anywhere also. Now let me run it again. Okay. Here also you see here. Now one example of f and n has come. N has been chosen as 3 here. As I told you, it is a random number. So f and n is called with 3. So 3 parameters, first 3 parameters, 5, 9, 9. Then fn3 with 3 parameters, 9, 5, 7. Then fn3 again, 1, 5, 4. Then fn1 came, so I have called 5. Now I already exhausted with the 4 functions itself, but one more function is coming in with 4 parameters, so I say no. Is this clear with this explanation? Anybody? At least not clear you tell, or clear you tell, so that I will know whether. Okay. What about Swati says? Dhanashwar says. Okay. Anybody saying no? I am going to explain. Okay, thank you. I think. Okay, great. I am very happy. Even if one person says no, I am willing to explain. Okay, but I don't want you all will be urging to write the code, so I don't want to hold you, boring you explaining the same thing. So, okay, let us play around with the number. Okay, just how rugged it is. No, maybe I tested it. Okay, but still I won't be sure. It may misbehave. So I want you to do the same testing like what I do, so that you are also happy with your code. Yeah, no, it has come out successfully. Okay, it went in and came out successfully. It did not call any function. You see that I am calling this function, nothing was called. It came with 0, 0, no function could be called. Okay, but it did not even say, and why did not say exhausted? Because function object itself was not there. Okay, that's why you didn't even get the error message. It came out gracefully. Okay, now suppose if I say 5 here, okay, what happens? I don't give a parameter list at all. Now what happens? It has a valid parameter list of 5 functions in it, but there are no parameters at all. So even in the first, from this one, you will know that it is coming from the fn1 error 1 parameter list exhausted. Sorry, first itself it is exhausted. Now suppose if I give very minimal number of parameters, what happens? Sorry, first function itself was expecting 3 and I have only 2 parameters. So again a failure. So let us run again. If you are lucky enough, you have function 2 came, first parameter function. It used the 2 parameters that were there, and then it says I am sorry, exhausted. So you can see that any combination works. I want you to test it out your program also, that it works for all combination. Okay, I hope this is clear now. Random choice, random function, I'm sure you can Google and find out how to use it. That's not very difficult. So I don't need to, if I scroll down to show you that, then I will be showing unnecessarily my implementation to influence you. So I will do one more thing to encourage. I don't know whether you want me to say that. Let us see. First deadline. Okay, first deadline. Those who complete before the lab. Okay, before the lab will get some bonus mark. Okay, just to motivate you. Will get bonus marks. I'm sorry, last time one person has submitted it. I will give the name of his thing, but I cannot give any bonus marks to him because I did not announce it earlier. Maybe some of you would have implemented it, not shared with me. So I'm sorry, I can't give that bonus mark to him. Now I am going to announcing it. So you please, it's like a coding competition. Try to do it as fast as possible. I will not look into the coding guidelines, whether you are following everything, as long as the code works reliably. And if you can submit it before the lab, that's the first deadline. Okay, let us see anybody is giving it, then we'll try to extend it. But I don't want you to do this problem during the next class when the class is going on. Is very injustice to the lecturer who is taking the class. So I will not extend this deadline. Okay, because you will be tempted to do that during the lab hours of or class hours of next class, which is not fair on my part to do that. I don't know whether you will guarantee me that you will not do that. Okay, so anyway, I will not talk more. I will give you 2 minutes to ask any doubts, anything come across. You suddenly some corner case I have not addressed about. I will do one thing. I will show you the explanation. I'm going to share this explanation also. Hopefully I have not confused you in the explanation. So just quickly I'll go it. Write a function, get random parameters that fills count number. Okay, it is going to, okay, I have not mentioned that. Okay, you are going to pass the count, which is how many number of random parameters you are going to want this function to generate, because it is based on the configurable parameter, right? If you want to 10 parameters, you should pass the 10 to that function. So that count is going to be passed to this function. So it is going to generate that number of thing within this list, and then it is going to pass back that value. Another function you write, okay, which is also going to take a count, which is also a configurable parameter. How many random number of function objects you want me to fill it up with? Okay, it is going to use this init function object, which is already given you, and it is going to pick those objects and then fill it up and then pass back. Okay, this is the initial function object which I gave you. So the function objects in this have already been defined and shared in the template code, which I am going to share it with you. Okay, this is clear, I suppose. Then what are those functions? Okay, I have already explained it, so I don't need to, for a completeness sake, I have put it in this slide. I have already explained this code. Okay, now what is that you are going to implement apart from those random function generators that are small one? This is the call function which you are going to implement it, which is going to take both the list and this function calls the function objects in the same order they appear in the list of function objects, and picking up parameters from the list of parameters, which is this, based on the function being picked up from the function object list. I think this explanation is clear. For example, fn1 is invoked with one parameter and fn2 is called with two parameters. Now the functions are called one by one until either all function objects are exhausted or the parameters in the list gets exhausted, okay, whichever is earlier. Need to make sure that proper checking is done prior to accessing the parameter list so that no runtime exception is generated. See, you don't even accessing the list, you need to be careful. Suppose you are looking for three parameters, don't say, I try to get it from the list and then say, oh, sorry, list is exhausted. No, then there will be a runtime exception. So you should keep track of how many you have already used up and then how many more is left out so that you don't access the list beyond the limit of the list. Okay. So the program should give an error, parameters exhausted, and exit gracefully. Okay. Now output from the template code. Okay. This is what I have already shown you. So there is no expected output. Yeah, this I have explained to you. So this slide also I will share it with you, and the template code also I will share it with you. Okay, so let me share. I should not attach that one. Then there is no fun. Problem on template. Okay. Okay, done. So we can break now. Break for 10 minutes while you work on it. I will take a break. Please drop all your doubts or chat. Where to submit? You can mail it to me. That's a good question. Okay, you email to me if you are completing it before 8 p.m. Okay, see you again at what time? 7:10. Okay. Oh, sorry. 7:10 p.m. Okay. Yeah. Whoa, okay. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, good question. You will get marks for the submission, all of you. Do you want me to extend this deadline? Is it too less for the bonus mark? I don't know. Swati is asking for a bonus mark or a lab submission mark. Everyone will get for submitting it for the lab normal lab submission mark, but bonus, should I extend it to the end of day today or not? Extend the deadline. Okay, submission mark you will get for sure, Savati. Shivani is asking for extending the deadline, but my problem, Shivani, you should not do this work during the class hours of other professors, which is not fair. Whole class, can you? Okay, I will extend it till tomorrow 6 a.m. Is that okay? I don't want. It will not take too much time. Or okay, end of today. I don't know when to put it. So by extension, I don't know how long you want it. Shall I say 12 noon? Is or 12 noon is too much. You are having class till 11 o'clock. Do you have class after this, or how is it? Somebody can come online and talk rather than typing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that means how when do you want? What is the time you want? Any for the bonus mark? I want end of today. I don't know what is the end of today. Today, okay, you decide. Maybe I will decide. 12 midnight. Okay, I don't want you to stay awake beyond that. Till 12 midnight bonus mark. Okay, submit it on by email. Okay. Okay. So let us take a break. You can always ask me any doubts later on. Yeah, for bonus before 12. Let us make it before 12. Bonus before 12 midnight today. Please sleep early. Good night. Thank you. Bye bye.